From the Palmetto State, so you can hear, I speak your language. I have nice, not quite maybe as much of a drawl as some of the folks in Alabama, but certainly you won't have any trouble understanding me today, most of you. I did speak in Minneapolis a couple of weeks ago, and that was a little bit of a problem for a few people. I told the gentleman in the back, you know, it used to be when you reach in that pocket when you were younger, you find that pair of jeans or whatever, you'd reach in your pocket and you'd find a little bit of extra cash. And we all enjoy that. We found where we left a $5 bill, but I've reached the point now where I'm just happy to find another pair of reading glasses. Lots changed since my last trip to Montgomery. I actually worked for in 1990, I think is the last time I've been in this fair city. Been in Birmingham some. My wife's a University of Alabama Law School grad. Sorry, Auburn folks, I understand we have Carolina, Clemson, and South Carolina, so we understand how that works as well. But I've certainly followed Alabama politics. I've worked in grassroots, grass tops, issue advocacy work for a really long time. And as a result of that, we developed a program which, if you haven't taken the RAP Index survey, I urge you to. We're going to talk a little bit about some of your results as well. But what we realized, and Nico's right, it's usually on an Excel spreadsheet, or it's in a lobbyist head somewhere about who Dr. Franks knows, you know, or just, God, I think he knows that guy. Let me double check. You know, and there's a lot of people in the legislature to take their temperature. You know, office holders change. So when we realized that there was an opportunity there, we created this, which is now being used around the country. So what I want to talk to you a little bit about is the value of grassroots and the impact it can have. And I'm going to talk a little bit about your data as well. I lost my screen more, so you have to tell me. I don't know, maybe put just some dead on. Okay. Yep. Just needed to be prompted a little bit. How many of you see yourself as an advocate? You're here, right? Good. That's a good start. Those of you that didn't, please go ahead and get lunch. Let's talk about this. This is from a study called the Advocacy Gap. And there have been a number of studies in the last couple of years. A few personal emails, hundreds of form emails, calls from a few constituents, able to articulate on the phone why they care about an issue and how it affects them better than calls from hundreds of constituents parroting and talking points. You have issues over Medicaid expansion, you have issues over real estate, you have issues over taxation, you have issues over a host of things like every state does, and those members across the way there are inundated by everyone who thinks their issue is most important. And that's okay because that's the way the system works, but we have to find a way, and we have to understand, and you need to understand, and you need to appreciate and give yourself a little bit of credit. You're a great messenger, not just to those members, but also within your own community about issues affecting the medical profession. And I would go so far as to suggest, at the point that you're comfortable doing so, your patients look to you to tell them about what's going on. And they expect you, as it relates to them, you're being able to take care of them, they expect to hear from you. I'm not saying, you know, here, let's take your temperature and let's do your blood pressure, and oh, by the way, you need to call your legislature. I'm not suggesting that, but I am suggesting that your patients see you as a valuable, knowledgeable resource about issues facing their medical care. And you shouldn't discount that. And you shouldn't hesitate, under the right circumstance, to raise that point, particularly if you think there's someone that might be willing to get involved as it affects their own care. So we know we've got a pretty good idea about what you guys are doing now. You're using the RAP Index. Sounds like you've got good participation in your PAC. It's interesting that you can now do corporate contributions. That's not every state will get out of that. Good for Alabama.
Except for, Chip, I'll add too, except for you got a lot of big corporations out there that may not have the same viewpoints we do, and they want to pour money in too. So we've got to meet that.
Right. Well, that's where I was going. The thing is, so if it's corporate contributions now allowed, does that mean that Does that mean that Alabama Power gets to kick in a whole lot more as opposed to, is there a limit on it?
It used to be.
But there's no limit now.
$500 per election cycle.
Wow, okay. So you've got a relationship, and you've got a process to formalize that and do that. And Nico talked a little bit about that. If you didn't take the survey, how many of you remember getting the survey? Good. So just to let you know how that process works, is we're not just gauging, it's not Survey Monkey. We're not just gauging, you know, oh yeah, I know them. If you remember, we're asking you about the breadth and the depth and the scope of the relationship. Because what we want to do is put our best message into the mix with that particular elected official. Do you know them? How well do you know them? How would you be comfortable contacting them? We found an incredible amount of data and really some funny stuff over the years, and I'm going to talk about some of your results. But my favorite result that we found so far was for a group in Wisconsin where the response was, I'm married to the state senator. Now, no, I don't know if that was good or bad. I don't know the status of that relationship, but I do know that they have a relationship there that they should be able to leverage effectively. You hear a lot about grassroots and grass tops. All of you can participate from a grassroots standpoint. I would suggest because of your profession and because of your reach, because of the people that you touch, and frankly, you know, I think it's clear most of the time physicians in your communities are seen as knowledgeable, engaged individuals who are serious people, because you have to be serious people to have undergone what you did at medical school and what you do on a daily basis. To me, you're all grass tops. To me, you're all influencers. One of the emphasis for creating the RAP Index was an interesting, who remembers West Wing? Everybody watched West Wing? Good show. Didn't like the politics, but good show. That's pontificating here, sorry. And there's a story about a senator who had been with the White House on a number of issues, and all of a sudden the guy wouldn't return anybody's phone calls. And they couldn't figure out what it was. And nobody could get a message into this senator who'd been a loyal supporter of the Bartlett administration and so forth. Well, in the storyline, somebody finally saw a picture from the White House Easter egg hunt with the senator and several of his family members. And in that photo was a young child. Well, it turns out that young child had autism, and the Bartlett administration had cut funding for autism out of their budget. And that's the storyline. You never know what affects people. You never know what the impetus is to get them to either be for you or against you. And having those relationships and cultivating those relationships can go a very, very long way. You're all grass tops. You've got professional relationships. You've also got personal relationships as well that you need to think about leveraging. And they're important, and they're not that hard. You already have them. You just don't necessarily see yourself sometimes. I have to assume the people who took the time to come here today see yourselves as advocates. But part of what we want to do today is get you to leave here and go back to your fellow members in the medical profession and help get them more engaged as well. Help them see themselves as advocates. Talk about mass mobilization. Look, mass mobilization, sometimes, as Nico said, you got to do it. Sometimes when there's so much noise over there and there's so much stuff going on, you have to do that, but it's always going to be quantity over quality. Whereas if we're working off a key contact effort, you'll be able to prioritize. Volume is only good. Volume does give some members of the elected bodies some cover, but it doesn't necessarily help us get what we want. They can always turn and say, no, I was with you last year, but you won't believe how my phone's blowing up. Well, that's a cop-out a lot of times, but they use it. That's why we've got to focus on those long-standing, doesn't have a darn thing to do with your medical profession. I'm looking for relationships where you grew up with somebody. I'm looking for relationships where your kids play football together. You know, where you go to church with them, maybe you play golf with them, whatever. I'm looking for those relationships. And I'll go so far as to say that we're looking for relationships that will make elected officials uncomfortable because they're going to see you again. You know, if they're never going to see you again, or if you're an anonymous letter or an anonymous email basically, and they don't feel like they got to deal with it, that's one thing. But if they know they're going to sit 2 rows behind you in church on Sunday, they're probably going to pay a little bit more attention. Would you agree? Maybe not in the Northeast, but definitely in the South, right? You know, you're going to see people. So let's take advantage of that. Hyper-personal and completely customizable in terms of messaging and targeting. They can be already existing, as we talked about, or they can be developed. It's up to you. But they're out there. They're throughout the organization. And what we're trying to do with using the RAP Index and some of the things, some of the other programs that NICO has in place, very organized, by the way. I'm going to give him credit because I've talked to a number of medical societies and medical groups around the country. And you guys have got a lot of good programs going on. I know the gentleman over here somewhere seemed, you know, when do we, there he is, back over there. You know, we've got so many other issues we're fighting. How do we know when we can push? It's a drip. It has to be a continual drip on these issues for people to hopefully get to a point where then we can get the action that we're looking for. So what kind of relationship? School, church, you're in a Lions Club together. You're related to them, you know, from a family connection. Your children play soccer together, your baseball, you know, or you've helped them with their campaign, or you know more about their political campaign. I mean, let's face it, guys. You guys are seeing whether you're getting reimbursed like you want to or not right now. Everybody thinks y'all got a lot of money. You're doctors. Sorry, but everybody hits you up. How many members of the medical profession in this room today have been hit up for a political contribution? Please raise your hand. Because between you and the lawyers, we figure y'all got it, right? And I can say that. My wife's an attorney, so I can get away with that. So you're going to have the ability to have that dialogue. And whether you choose to give them a contribution or whether you choose to contribute to the PAC or not, you're going to have that dialogue. You should take advantage of that. You know, I don't know how much, do y'all do any touring with the elected officials in terms of going to hospital systems and those kinds of things?
Some specialties, like we were talking about, well, I think we're part of the broader conversation, but some specialties, if they have specific issues, they'll bring them in and do a tour, do a surgery sit-in, things like that.
Right.
It's not widely used, but...
No, but it can be very effective because they're not doctors. They don't understand. They don't necessarily understand your work, and we don't always understand their work. But whenever you can have the opportunity for them to firsthand see how things are being affected and see how those issues are affecting, take advantage of it, coordinate it, invite them into your practice. Don't do a firing squad interrogation with an elected official, but bring them in and show them some of the interaction. Let them see that, look, this particular device costs X, this particular device costs this. This will save this person trouble from having to be back in the hospital. This is an issue. Explain it to them and educate them as much as possible. You have incredible credibility. You have value as an advocate. Don't sell yourself short. Don't do that. And don't let your partners sell themselves short as well. You have knowledge that 99%, I don't know, do you have any members? Do you have any members who are elected officials? Do you have any doctors who are in
We do. We have two. I mean, we got 2 senators this past election cycle.
Okay, good, because they can tell their colleagues, they can help explain the issues facing the profession to them as well. But don't just rely on them when you're at home, when you're in Huntsville, when you're in Florence, when you're in Tuscaloosa. Take advantage of the opportunity to educate. Because you have the ability to make the message more memorable because of who you are and because you are seen as a valued, credible advocate on behalf of your profession. I'm not a doctor. I don't know these things, but I also make sure I'm educating someone, not lecturing someone. That can go a long way. And in terms of strength, if there's a way to illustrate perhaps how an issue affects someone else they know, without violating HIPAA, and then we get into all that, I would urge you to do so. I would urge you to do so. This is true at a state level as well. 75% of congressional staff are unsure of the legitimacy of identical forms of communication. Wow. I mean, 75% think that what comes through those mass emails and mass letters, they're not even sure if they were signed by the person that says they were signing them. 64% that the internet in general has reduced the whole quality of communication. We are so caught up in social media that sometimes we forget how to be social. You know, it's so much easier to retweet something. so much easier to like something on Facebook. How about just, now I've got a 14-year-old who I wish I'd never given a telephone. Because I'm worried that he's never going to be able to have a conversation with anybody. Because all he does is text. And I see some of our younger members of the body over here looking at me and kind of laughing a little bit. But you know, conversations are important. Not blowing up people's emails or what have you. Real conversations between people are still valuable. And we lose some of that when it comes to our advocacy, because it's just so easy with social media or with technology today to hit a button. And we have to be willing, even if it means getting out of our comfort zone, of doing more than just clicking like or hitting send. It takes more than that. And we have to be prepared, and we have to encourage your fellow members of the association to do the same thing. These are some older numbers, but just to give you an idea, constituent mail to Congress has gone up 275%. They get 4 times more communications, 18,335,000 messages, and 182 million messages on the internet. How do you get past that clutter? I'm sure the numbers aren't that high in Montgomery, but you get the point. It's overwhelming, the kind of things. So you have to use relationships to get past this clutter. It can't be effective. Well, the question is, how is it effective? How is all that effective? The point is it's not. The point is it isn't effective. You are effective. You are effective. You are effective. And you are effective because you have a relationship with someone that they trust, that they see you as someone who understands the issues, and you may not agree with, they may not agree with you. But I would rather have a conversation with someone I disagree with and have the conversation and understand where we are than actually not having that conversation and having something go against us and never had made the effort to actually go and make our case. And grab them at the grocery store. What the heck? Grab them at the golf club. Sorry, pastors, grab them, pull them outside at the end of church. I don't, but take the opportunity to have those conversations. Some more data. Doubt and legitimacy is identical. 44% of the survey Hill said individualized messages have a lot of influence versus 3%. Congressional offices are using social media to engage public opinion. That's part of the problem. Go back to my comment about social media. Well, we got 42,000 likes. Okay. We now have, and Lori, I'm sorry, I know you're the social media guru, but so I'm not taking shots there, but those are important. It is important, but it's still important to have those personal contacts. A lot of the congressional offices, and even a lot of the staff offices at the state level around the country, are looking to see if their office holder has a position, how many likes or how many retweets they get. That's not reality. That's some kid sitting in his mother's basement, for God's sake. Maybe not, but such a great video, so much cooler online. That's not reality. That's not the real world. That's not you practicing medicine and trying to take care of your patients and fight the battle that you do daily for reimbursements and the things. That's not what we're about. This is about personal interaction. So, with it being the new polling, just remember with that mass mobilization, you might make an impact, but you might not necessarily win. And you're certainly going to have the ability to have a much more quality messaging. So what I want to do is talk about your data and tell you that just from the ones who did participate, I see good and bad information on the data that was originally, I see good and bad's too strong a word, concerning. Because when we asked the question, would you be interested in being more politically active, 37% said yes. And then, well, 19, I said this is good. 20% said they'd be more active, 37% said I'd be interested in being more active, and 37% said, I'm not really interested. I know it's a necessary evil, but I really don't want to do it. okay? And yet, when we have an opportunity to attend public hearings, we ask the question, how many of you, whether you've done any of the following in the past 12 months? 31% have been to a public hearing or a local state gathering of some nature. 68% said no. I've got 2 businesses, 2 children, a wife that works, and I know you're busy too. This is your livelihood. We have to get you more engaged. We have to get you more engaged, even, maybe we can figure out a way to